The Haunting of Black Hollow Prison. Chapter 1: The Forgotten Prison. The town of Black Hollow had long been forgotten by the rest of the world. Once a thriving mining settlement, it had dwindled into obscurity after the industry collapsed. But among the crumbling buildings and overgrown streets, one structure still loomed with an eerie presence: Black Hollow Prison. Abandoned for nearly 50 years, the prison stood on the outskirts of town, surrounded by dense woods. No one dared to go near it. The locals whispered about the screams that echoed through the night, the shadows that moved behind shattered windows, and the strange lights that flickered in the darkness. Nathan Carter, a freelance journalist, had heard the rumors. He had spent years chasing haunted places, documenting ghost stories for his online blog. When he stumbled upon an old newspaper article about the prison's violent past, he knew he had found his next big story. According to the records, Black Hollow Prison had been shut down in 1972 after a deadly riot. Dozens of inmates and guards were slaughtered in a brutal massacre. But something about the official reports didn't add up. Files were missing, and some testimonies were inconsistent. There were even claims that the prisoners had been tormented by something inhuman before the riot. Determined to uncover the truth, Nathan packed his camera, flashlight, and a voice recorder. He convinced his friend and fellow investigator, Lisa Monroe, to join him. Lisa was skeptical but intrigued. She specialized in paranormal research and had experienced her fair share of hauntings. "Are you sure about this?" Lisa asked as they drove down the deserted road leading to the prison. "Places like this are abandoned for a reason. That's exactly why we need to go," Nathan replied. "What if the stories are true? What if we find real evidence of something unnatural?" As they approached the prison, a thick fog rolled in, swallowing the road behind them. The iron gates stood rusted and twisted, as if something had forced them open from the inside. Beyond them, the prison loomed, its dark silhouette stretching against the moonlit sky. Nathan felt a chill creep down his spine. He had explored many haunted places, but something about Black Hollow Prison felt wrong. It wasn't just abandoned, it was waiting. Lisa pulled out her camera and took a deep breath. "Let's get this over with." They stepped through the gates, unaware that they had just crossed into something far worse than they had ever imagined. Chapter 2: Echoes of the Past. Nathan and Lisa stepped cautiously through the rusted gates, their flashlights cutting through the thick fog. The air inside the prison grounds felt different, heavy, almost suffocating. The scent of damp stone and decay filled their lungs as they approached the main entrance. The double doors, once reinforced steel, were slightly ajar. Graffiti covered the walls, remnants of past intruders who had dared to enter. But the deeper they moved into the prison, the more it became clear this place had not been touched in years. "Strange," Lisa muttered, brushing dust off an old visitor sign in sheet that still lay on the front desk. "It's like time stopped in here." Nathan aimed his camera down the long, empty corridor ahead. Cells lined both sides, their iron bars rusted shut. Some doors were wide open, revealing nothing but darkness. "Let's start with cell block A," he suggested. "That's where most of the violence happened during the riot." They moved deeper into the prison, their footsteps echoing unnaturally loud. The further they went, the colder it became. Nathan checked his breath. He could see it in the dim light. "Did the temperature just drop?" Lisa whispered. Before Nathan could answer, a loud clang echoed through the corridor. They both froze. The sound had come from inside one of the cells. Lisa aimed her flashlight toward the source. The beam flickered for a second, and for the briefest moment, Nathan swore he saw a figure standing in one of the cells. A tall, shadowy figure with hollow eyes staring right at them. Then it was gone. "Did you see that?" he asked, voice hushed. Lisa nodded, gripping her camera tighter. "We are not alone in here." A sudden gust of freezing air rushed past them, slamming one of the open cell doors shut with a deafening bang. Nathan's heart pounded. He raised his voice recorder and clicked it on. "Is there someone here with us?" Silence. Then a whisper, faint, almost imperceptible. "Leave." Lisa grabbed Nathan's arm. "We need to get out of here." But Nathan wasn't ready to leave. Not yet. Something inside him, curiosity or maybe arrogance, kept him rooted in place. The prison had spoken, and he wanted to know why. Chapter 3. The Warden's Office. Nathan took a deep breath, steadying his nerves. Lisa's grip on his arm tightened, her eyes darting toward the cell where the whisper had come from. "We should go," she insisted. But Nathan shook his head. "Not yet. Something wants to communicate. We might be onto something huge." Lisa exhaled sharply but didn't argue. She knew Nathan well enough to realize he wouldn't leave without answers. "Fine," she muttered. "But if we see anything else, we get the hell out." Nathan nodded in agreement, though deep down, he knew he wasn't going anywhere until he had something concrete. They continued down the hallway, past the cells, until they reached a set of heavy wooden doors marked Warden's Office. The brass nameplate beneath the sign was tarnished, but the name was still legible: Warden Albert Henshaw. Nathan pushed on the door, and to his surprise, it creaked open with ease. The room inside was untouched, as if the warden had simply stepped out and never returned. Dust coated the desk, papers lay scattered, and an old rotary phone sat disconnected on the corner. Lisa moved to the bookshelf, running her fingers along the spines of old law books. Nathan, meanwhile, set up his camera on the desk, adjusting the angle. "This is where it all started," he said, checking his voice recorder. "Henshaw was the warden when the riot broke out. According to reports, he locked himself in here while the prisoners slaughtered each other outside." Lisa frowned. "Coward." Nathan scanned the room, his eyes landing on an old file cabinet in the corner. He pulled the drawer open, expecting it to be empty. Instead, he found a thick folder labeled confidential. His pulse quickened as he flipped through the pages. They weren't standard prison records, these were psychological evaluations. Pages upon pages of interviews with inmates who had claimed to see something. One report caught his attention. Inmate number 24601. Subject claims to hear voices in the walls. Describes the man with no face appearing outside his cell at night. Exhibits signs of extreme paranoia. Refuses to sleep. Reports of spontaneous bleeding and hallucinations. Recommended for solitary confinement. Nathan read another. Inmate number 37289. Subject claims an entity controls the prison. Insists that the riot was not an act of rebellion but an attempt to escape from the thing in the dark. A shiver ran down his spine. These weren't just ghost stories. Something had driven these men to madness. Lisa leaned over his shoulder. "What the hell is this?" Before Nathan could answer, the old rotary phone on the desk rang. They both jumped. Lisa grabbed Nathan's wrist. "That's impossible. There's no power in this place." The phone rang again. Nathan hesitated, then slowly reached for the receiver. The moment his fingers touched it, the ringing stopped. Silence. Then, "You shouldn't be here." The voice on the other end was deep, distorted, like it was coming from underwater. Nathan's blood turned to ice. Lisa yanked the receiver from his hand and slammed it back onto the cradle. "We're done. We're leaving. Now." But before they could move, the door to the office slammed shut on its own. The temperature plummeted. The overhead light flickered violently, casting jagged shadows across the walls. And then, from the dark corner of the room, a figure stepped forward. A tall, faceless figure in a prison warden's uniform. And it was coming straight for them. Chapter 4, Trapped. Nathan's breath hitched in his throat as the figure emerged from the darkness. The warden, if that's what it was, towered over them, his face a smooth, featureless void. The air in the room grew thick, suffocating, like the walls themselves were closing in. Lisa stumbled backward, yanking on the door handle. "It won't budge," she gasped. Nathan barely heard her. His entire body felt paralyzed, locked in place by an unseen force. The warden's presence was overwhelming, a suffocating weight pressing down on his chest. Then the lights went out. Total darkness. Lisa screamed. Nathan fumbled for his flashlight, hands shaking. When he finally switched it on, the beam flickered erratically, barely illuminating the room. The warden was gone, but something was still in there with them. The whispering started again. Low, guttural voices circling them in the dark. He shouldn't have come back. They all end up the same. The walls remember the blood. Nathan spun in place, flashlight darting across the room. Shadows twisted unnaturally, elongating, writhing like living things. Then cold fingers grazed the back of his neck. He whipped around, heart hammering, but there was nothing there. Lisa's voice was sharp with panic. "Nathan, we have to go." She yanked open a drawer in desperation, searching for anything. Keys, a weapon, a way out. Instead, she found a brittle, yellow journal. Warden Henshaw's. Nathan barely had time to register it before the whispering turned to screaming. The walls shook, the entire office vibrating as if something massive was trying to break through. A deafening boom erupted behind them. The bookshelf toppled over, barely missing Lisa as she dove out of the way. Papers exploded into the air like a flurry of dead leaves. And then silence. The door creaked open on its own. Nathan and Lisa didn't wait to question it. They bolted. The hallway outside was even darker than before, the air colder. Nathan's flashlight barely cut through the blackness. Their footsteps echoed unnaturally, distorted, as if the prison itself was warping around them. Lisa clutched the journal to her chest. What the hell was that thing? Nathan shook his head, still breathless. "I don't know, but I think we just met Warden Henshaw." A loud metallic bang echoed down the corridor behind them. Something was coming. Something big. Nathan grabbed Lisa's hand. "Run!" They sprinted down the hallway, deeper into the prison. Deeper into the dark, where something ancient had been waiting for them all along. Chapter 5, The Solitary Wing. Nathan and Lisa ran blindly through the darkness, their footsteps pounding against the cracked tile floor. The walls around them seemed to shift, stretching into endless corridors that hadn't been there before. The prison was changing, trapping them inside. Lisa clutched the warden's journal, her breathing ragged. "Where the hell are we going?" Nathan swung his flashlight ahead, revealing a rusted metal door at the end of the corridor. A single word was stenciled across it in faded black letters. "Solitary." Another loud bang shook the hallway behind them, closer this time. "We don't have a choice," Nathan said. He shoved the door open and they stumbled inside. The room beyond was long and narrow, lined with thick, reinforced doors, cells for the most dangerous inmates. The door behind them slammed shut the second they entered. Lisa whirled around. "No, no, no!" She grabbed the handle, but it wouldn't budge. Nathan turned, scanning the dimly lit corridor of solitary confinement. Something felt wrong here, worse than the rest of the prison. The air was thick, suffocating, like it was pressing against his skin. Lisa flipped open the journal with shaking fingers. Maybe Henshaw wrote something about this place. Nathan barely heard her. He stepped forward cautiously, his flashlight sweeping over the numbered doors. 1, 2, 3. The further they walked, the colder it became. Nathan's breath fogged the air as he approached the last door at the end of the hall. Cell 13. It was different from the others. The door was covered in deep scratches, as if someone had clawed at it from the inside. A heavy chain was wrapped around the handle, held in place by a rusted padlock. And then, a voice. "Please, don't open it." Nathan's blood ran cold. He turned sharply, but Lisa was still flipping through the journal. She hadn't spoken. The voice had come from inside the cell. Nathan took a step back. "Lisa, I think something's in there." Lisa barely looked up. "I think I found something. Listen to this." She read aloud from the journal. "Cell 13 must remain sealed at all costs. The prisoner inside is not to be spoken to, not to be fed, not to be acknowledged. The others call him the faceless man. They say he whispers to them through the walls, that he promises them freedom, but they all die screaming." A loud scraping sound made them both freeze. The chain around Cell 13's door was moving. Nathan took a slow step backward. "Lisa, we need to leave." The door handle rattled violently. The chain snapped, and then the door swung open. A wave of freezing air rushed out, hitting them like a tidal wave. And in the darkness beyond the doorway, two pale hands reached out, and something stepped into the light. Chapter 6. The Thing in Cell 13. Nathan's flashlight flickered as the figure stepped out of Cell 13. It was tall, impossibly thin, its skin stretched tight over a skeletal frame. Its head tilted unnaturally to one side, as if the bones in its neck had been shattered long ago. But the worst part, the part that made Nathan's stomach drop, was its face. Or rather, the lack of one. Where its eyes, nose, and mouth should have been, there was only smooth, featureless skin. Lisa screamed. The creature's head snapped in her direction. Nathan grabbed her wrist and yanked her backward as the thing lunged. It moved too fast, its limbs bending in ways that shouldn't have been possible. The door to Cell 13 slammed shut behind it, trapping them in the solitary wing with it. Nathan and Lisa ran. The creature's footsteps didn't make a sound, but Nathan could feel it chasing them. The air grew thick, heavy, like the walls themselves were closing in. The hallway stretched longer and longer, the exit door further away than before. Nathan's mind screamed that this wasn't real, this wasn't possible. But the cold fingers brushing against his back told him otherwise. Lisa tripped. She hit the floor hard, the journal flying from her hands. Nathan skidded to a stop. "Lisa!" She groaned, trying to push herself up, but the creature was already there. It stood over her, its faceless head tilted down, watching. Nathan moved before he could think. He grabbed the journal and threw it at the creature. The second the book hit its chest, the air rippled, as if reality itself had been disturbed. The creature let out a horrible, wet gurgling sound and staggered backward, its body twitching violently. Lisa scrambled to her feet. What the hell just happened? Nathan didn't waste time answering. He grabbed her hand, and they ran for the door. The hallway was still shifting, stretching impossibly long. The lights overhead flickered, revealing glimpses of dozens of shadowy figures watching from the other cells. Nathan focused on the exit. It was so close. 5 feet. 3, 1. They slammed into the door, pushing with everything they had. For a second, Nathan thought it wouldn't open, that the prison wouldn't let them leave. Then, the door burst open, and they stumbled through. The air was suddenly warm again. They turned. The solitary wing was gone. The rusted door was shut tight, as if they had never entered. Nathan's hands were shaking. He looked down at the warden's journal, still clutched in his fist. The pages were flipping on their own, as if an invisible hand was guiding them. Then they stopped. Nathan's eyes locked onto a single sentence, scribbled in jagged, frantic handwriting. "It doesn't want to kill you. It wants to wear you." A soft tapping echoed from behind the door to the solitary wing. A slow, rhythmic knock. 1, 2, 3. Then a voice. Not human, not right, but his own voice. "Let me out." Nathan and Lisa ran. But deep inside Black Hollow Prison, something laughed. And it sounded just like them. Chapter 7, The Third Riot. Nathan and Lisa ran until their lungs burned, until their legs felt like they would give out. The twisting hallways of Black Hollow Prison seemed to stretch endlessly, shifting like a maze designed to keep them trapped. Nathan still clutched the warden's journal, his fingers white-knuckled around the worn leather cover. The words inside still burned in his mind. "It doesn't want to kill you. It wants to wear you." The sound of shuffling footsteps echoed behind them, dozens of them. But every time Nathan turned head, the hallway was empty. Lisa grabbed his wrist. "We need to get out of here. Now." Nathan nodded, trying to steady his breathing. "The front entrance, if we retrace our steps, we can dash." A siren blared, a deep, guttural alarm that rattled the walls. Then, the cell doors along the corridor burst open all at once. Nathan and Lisa froze. At first, the cells were empty. Nothing but darkness. Then the inmates stepped out, or at least what was left of them. Dozens of figures, bloated, rotting, twisted by decades of decay, crawled into the hallway. Their prison uniforms hung in tatters over decomposed flesh. Their hollow eyes locked onto Nathan and Lisa. The prison was repeating the riot. Nathan's heart pounded. "Run!" They bolted as the dead prisoners screamed and charged forward. Lisa's flashlight flickered wildly, shattered skulls, broken jaws, and gaping wounds that never stopped bleeding. One prisoner was missing his lower jaw, his tongue hanging loose, dragging against the floor as he sprinted toward them. Another had no long, jagged bones protruding his stumps, scraping against the concrete walls as he ran. The hallway ahead split into two paths. Nathan yanked Lisa left, praying it was the right choice. The moment they turned the corner, the screaming stopped. The inmates were gone. Nathan skidded to a halt, panting. Lisa leaned against the wall, her eyes wild. What the hell just happened? Nathan swallowed hard. I don't know. It's like the prison is reliving it. Lisa's grip tightened on her flashlight. That means we're next. Nathan flipped through the journal, desperate for answers. His hands trembled as he scanned the final pages, searching for something, anything faculty get them out. Then he found it. The last entry, scrawled in Warden Henshaw's handwriting. There was never just one riot. The second one happened in 1972, when we lost control. But the first riot happened in 1931. And the third. Nathan's blood ran cold as he read the final words. The third riot hasn't happened yet, but it will. And when it does, no one will leave. A sound cut through the silence. The prison doors locking. One by one, Nathan slowly looked up at Lisa. They weren't escaping. They were waiting, because the third riot had just begun. Chapter 8. No Way Out. The sound of heavy metal doors slamming shut echoed through the prison, each one locking them deeper inside. Nathan and Lisa exchanged a panicked glance, and we have to find another way out, Lisa gasped. Nathan's mind raced. The prison yard. If we can get outside, maybe we can climb the fence. Lisa didn't argue. They ran. The hallway stretched for them. The flickering lights see jagged shadows across the walls. Then the whispers returned. Stay. Join us. The third riot needs more bodies. Lisa shook her head, pressing her hands against her ears. They're everywhere. Nathan G. wrapped her arm, pulling her forward. Ignore them. Keep moving. They turned a corner and skidded to a stop. The corridor ahead was lined with inmates. Not ghosts. Not Veer. These prisoners were alive. Hundreds of them, dressed in old, blood-stained uniforms, their eyes burning with rage. Some held makeshift weapons, sharpened metal, broken pipes, rusted chains. Nathan's breath caught in his throat. The riot wasn't starting. It was already happening. A prisoner at the front, a hulking man with no nose, grinned through yellowed teeth. Fresh meat. Lisa took a shaky step back. Nathan. The prisoner raised a rusted shank. Get them. The mob charged. Nathan and Lisa spun around, sprinting back the way they came. The prisoners were fast. Nathan could hear screaming, the sound of bare feet slamming against concrete, chains dragging against the floor. Up ahead, an open stairwell. Nathan grabbed Lisa's wrist. Up! They raced up the stairs, taking them two at a time. The prisoners followed. One of them, a man missing half his face, grabbed Lisa's ankle. She screamed and kicked him in the jaw, sending him tumbling back into the crowd. They reached the top floor, a watchtower overlooking the prison yard. The exit was ahead, a ladder leading to the roof. Nathan climbed first, moving fast, his palms slick with sweat. Lisa followed just as the prisoners reached the tower. They swarmed the room, clawing at her legs, their hands pulling at her clothes. Nathan grabbed her arms. I got you. With one final pull, he yanked her up. The prisoners howled below, slamming their fists against the metal ladder. Nathan and Lisa staggered onto the roof. The night air was cold and sharp, the wind whipping against their skin. Lisa gasped for breath. Now what? Nathan's eyes scanned the prison yard. Then he saw it, a fire escape leading down. Their way out. But before they could move, the roof hatch slammed open, and something crawled through. Not a prisoner, not human, the faceless man. It rose to its feet, V and K, face turning toward them. The wind around them died. The entire prison seemed to hold its breath. Then the faceless man spoke. "You don't get to leave." Nathan and Lisa ran, but the thing was faster. It moved without sound, its long limbs bending at unnatural angles as it closed the distance. Nathan grabbed Lisa's hand. "Jump!" And together they leaped off the roof. Chapter 9: The Fall. Nathan and Lisa plunged through the air, the wind roaring in their ears. The prison yard rushed toward them, cracked concrete and rusted metal waiting below. For a split second, Nathan thought, "This is it. We're going to die." Then impact. They crashed into an old maintenance awning, the fabric tearing apart, breaking their fall just enough before they hit the ground hard. Nathan groaned, pain flaring in his ribs. Lisa coughed, rolling onto her side. Still alive. Barely. Nathan forced himself up, scanning their surroundings. The prison yard was empty. No guards. No prisoners. No sound except for the wind whistling through the fences. Lisa sat up, wincing. That thing. Did it follow us? Nathan's stomach twisted. The faceless man had been right behind them. It had almost caught them. And now it was gone. Nathan looked up at the roof. The hatch was still open, but nothing was looking down. Lisa grabbed his arm. "Come on. The outer fence, if we can climb it, we're free." Nathan nodded. They ran. The yard stretched before them, patches of dead grass and crumbling pavement. Above, the watchtowers loomed, dark and empty. The main gates stood ahead, tall, rusted, wrapped in razor wire. Freedom was right there. Then, the lights in the prison blazed on. A siren screamed. Nathan skidded to a stop. Lisa's eyes widened. "No, no, no!" The yard gates slammed shut. The doors to the prison burst open, and the prisoners poured out. Not just the dead ones, not just the ones from the riot. All of them, every soul that had ever died in Black Hollow Prison. Hundreds, thousands, their rotting faces grinned, their empty eyes locked onto Nathan and Lisa. Nathan's throat closed. "We need to move." Lisa bolted for the fence. Nathan followed, but the dead were already running. Faster than they should have been. Faster than was humanly possible. Lisa jumped onto the fence, her hands grabbing at the rusted metal. Nathan scrambled up behind her, fingers slipping on the cold steel. The prisoners reached the base of the fence. They screamed. They clawed at their legs, their arms, their clothes. Nathan kicked one in the face, but more hands grabbed at him. Lisa was almost at the top. "Nathan, hurry!" He climbed higher, his fingers gripping the razor wire. The metal bit into his palms, blood dripping onto the dead below. Nathan gritted his teeth, swinging one leg over. And then, a hand grabbed his ankle. Cold, strong, inhuman. Nathan froze. Slowly, he looked down. The faceless man stood in the crowd, his long fingers wrapped around Nathan's leg. The skin on his face rippled, as if something inside was trying to push through. Nathan kicked. The grip tightened. Lisa reached for him. "Give me your hand." Nathan yanked his leg free. The faceless man whispered, "You will come back." Then Nathan threw himself over the fence. They hit the ground on the other side, tumbling onto cold dirt. Lisa gasped, "Go, go!" They staggered up, running toward the road. Behind them, the prison fell silent. Nathan turned, breathless. The prison gates were gone. The yard was empty. The prison looked abandoned, as if no one had ever been inside. Lisa gripped his arm. Did we make it?" Nathan's pulse hammered. "I don't know." A car's headlights appeared down the road. Nathan and Lisa ran toward it. It slowed. A sheriff's deputy stepped out, his eyes narrowing. "Jesus, where the hell did you two come from?" Nathan turned. Black Hollow Prison stood behind them. Old, decayed, empty, like it had been for decades. Nathan swallowed hard. Maybe they had escaped. But as the deputy led them toward his car, Nathan heard it. A single soft tap, coming from the backseat window. Lisa heard it too. And in the glass, Nathan saw his own reflection. Except it wasn't moving. It was smiling, and its face was smooth, featureless, like it was waiting, like it knew they would come back.